Everyone, I'm Stephen Brantley,
And I'm Michael Diego.
and we are the Social Enterprise Guys. All right, this episode we had Marilyn Pearlman, and she is the founder and principal of Atlanta Calls Marketing.
Yeah, this is a really great talking to Marilyn. You'll get a better understanding of exactly what cause marketing is. And just to briefly kind of sum it up, cause marketing is when a nonprofit teams up with a for-profit business to achieve mutual goals. Stephen, if anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, and that really benefits. It can work with nonprofits and for-profit businesses of all sizes, and we go into a little bit of what that looks like. But we also talk about Marilyns' background, how she came to start this business, and the different services that they provide. All right, well, we hope you enjoy this episode of the Social Enterprise Guys.
All right, let's go.
Marilyn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So you founded a company called Atlanta Calls Marketing, and I want to start off by just figuring out what calls marketing is. What can you briefly describe or define calls marketing?
Sure. Cause marketing is connecting businesses and nonprofits for the good of humanity and marketing, and then growing the businesses and the nonprofits together with PR and social media.
That's really interesting to me. You know, it's kind of a whole point behind the social enterprise movement is that we can all collaborate and work towards mutual goals, towards social goals. But you know, it can also help your business be more profitable as well.
Right. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Does cause marketing have to specifically involve a nonprofit? Or is that typically how it works with a nonprofit?
Yes, it is. It is. Generally, it's a nonprofit and a business, or it can be two nonprofits getting together and helping each other.
And is the nonprofit typically internal to the business, or how is it, how do the nonprofits and the businesses like connect,
Well, generally they're like-minded. Like I had a restaurant that I worked with for several years, and I asked the two partners, what are your passions? And they said, well, we both love kids, and we're both trying to eradicate cancer because our founder, the founder of the restaurant chain, died of cancer. So I connected them with Cure Childhood Cancer. Now, they could have found that organization on their own, but at the same time, they were looking for some PR. And I said, promoting your menu just won't do it. So let's try something different. And I didn't call it cause marketing. I just said, I want to connect you with a nonprofit. Tell me about your passions. So, and I can often do that with a nonprofit. Tell me about the ideal business that you'd want to work with. And then you get some interesting reactions.
Well, I want to hear some more about your background and how you came into this field.
Well, I came to Atlanta back in the late 70s from Memphis, Tennessee, my hometown. And I was planning to teach high school English. And part of that curriculum was a course in mass media for ninth graders. But the Atlanta public school system didn't give us a book to teach with. So I started wandering around the media and doing volunteer things for media people. At that time, you could walk in the door, talk to the receptionist, and she would help you get involved. That's not true anymore. Because of all the violence that's taken place over the years. But nonetheless, that's what I did. I did a lot of volunteer work, and I ended up doing a lot of that at Channel 2, WSB-TV here in Atlanta. It's a local ABC affiliate. And the public affairs director said, oh, well, I could use your help in putting together some of my programs, researching them, as well as greeting guests like Daddy King, Dr. Martin Luther King's father, when they come to the station for a program. And so that became my volunteer job after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, working in Channel 2. Now, eventually, I got a teacher's fellowship for $500 for the summer and did a lot of the same things for pay, but that's another story. So that's how I got into public relations.
Yeah. And I mean, that's really interesting to me because I have a strong passion for teaching, and then but I didn't really pursue a career in teaching, and so I've kind of developed these other skills along the way, or these other passions for collaborating across sectors, and so all of those kind of merged into what I'm doing now, is helping social enterprises. So it seems like you had a very similar route. And starting Atlanta Calls Marketing, and that's been around since 1977, right?
Correct.
And so what did your first client look like? What was it like starting up that business?
Well, in a sense, it was cause marketing by default. I had a contact from the Atlanta Community Relations Commission who recommended me for a client. And this was an architecture firm where one partner was Black and one was white. Well, that was pretty unusual back in the late 70s. And they wanted to get some visibility. And so I was able to get them with Jet Magazine, which was a big deal. That was a really important African-American or Black publication, as well as some of the local ones in Atlanta. Jet was national. And as well as introduce them to people in the Black and white community. So that was kind of a cost marketing, even though it wasn't introducing them to a specific nonprofit, if that makes sense.
It does. And when we talk about social enterprises, we kind of break it down into 3 different types, and one of those types is the donate back. And I consider that to be one of the most effective pieces or one of the most impactful methods of helping others is donating to an effective nonprofit. So that seems like this area that calls marketing fits in, but also donating your time, doing volunteer work.
Right. And I'll give you kind of an example there. The same restaurant client, we created a lot of events for the Cure Childhood Cancer, the beneficiary, the nonprofit we worked with. And some of the events were at the restaurant and some of the events were outside of it. But we got the staff involved. The staff would go to each table that they waited on and they would talk up the events we were having for Cure Childhood Cancer. And then when the restaurant volunteered to cook and provide meals at Scottish Rite and Eggleston Hospital as part of Children's Healthcare, the staff served the meals. They took their own time and went and helped to serve those meals to Cure families. That's pretty significant volunteer work. So it wasn't just the money that it took to provide the meals. It was the volunteer time of the staff.
And, you know, does this benefit only certain types of organizations or certain sizes, or
No,
does it work with everyone?
works with everybody. Give you some examples. I've worked with a lot of doctors, and doctors generally have a specialty, even if they're an individual practice internal medicine doctor, they have some kind of specialty like aging. Um, one doctor, for instance, was a neurosurgeon who specialized in head injury patients. And he spoke to groups on domestic violence because a lot of domestic violence cases end up being head injury cases. And I got that same doctor nominated for Healthcare Hero as part of the Atlanta Business Chronicle, and he came in third place. Another doctor did a lot of volunteering, and I got him on the board of directors of several organizations where there was a fit. He did a lot of work with diabetes patients. And so being on the American Diabetes Association and the Kidney Foundation were good fits. But on the other hand, General Motors, I worked with them, and they had a solar car race. They called it the Sun Race for many years. And they set up a race where the college students from all over the United States would design and build and race their own solar cars from Washington to Orlando. And General Motors provided, of course, all the opportunity for the students. And then because they needed a place to park the cars overnight across the country, I arranged for schools across the country, such as Georgia Tech here in Atlanta, to be the parking locations. And then Georgia Tech would give General Motors an award, or General Motors would give Georgia Tech an award. That's cost marketing too. I had a realtor that I worked with for 15 years. That realtor was involved in about 25 nonprofit organizations. And every month he would do an open house, sponsor an open house at his office. And his means of marketing was not only sponsoring the open house, at which both the nonprofits that he was involved in and the businesses that he did business with came to that open house. But then I would get a photographer and we would take pictures, and then I would send those pictures of the nonprofits and businesses meeting and greeting and send them to all the media, which got published in a lot of the publications, as well as covered in television. So all of that is cost marketing. So it can be any size business. The realtor was a medium-sized business, but General Motors obviously is a very large business. And some of these individual practice doctors were small, one-person shops, and others were larger.
Yeah, the General Motors example is really interesting. Like, how did that idea like come about, or like the collaboration with the schools? It
just became necessary because we had to figure out where the students could park, and they were all college students. So it made perfect sense to collaborate with schools across the country. And if Georgia Tech is likely to have a a relationship with some of the tech schools across the country and be more than willing to collaborate as University of Georgia or any number of schools would be happy to collaborate with other schools across the country. They do that all the time anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. I'm just like, so you started working with General Motors then, right? And then the whole thing just kind of like fell into place. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, it didn't all fall into place. I had to make it happen.
You made it happen, of course, Marilyn.
So this requires a lot of creative problem solving to figure out how to come up with these unique solutions for whatever issue a business is facing. Where does that come from? Is that your creative genius there? Is it a combination? Is it coming from internally with the nonprofit and business? How does that look?
Well, I tell you, it's kind of interesting. I went to a school, a college, liberal arts college in Memphis called Rhodes College. And it was it still is a small liberal arts college. And they made us constantly think about connections, how to connect Chaucer with Theodore Dreiser or any number of other writers in all centuries, or history in the 20th century with history, things that happened in the Middle Ages. And I swear to this day, I think that helped me do cause marketing. As weird as it sounds, it just helped me think about how to connect the dots.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So I studied journalism at the University of Georgia, and like I think the skill set that I still like that I feel that I gained from that was that, yeah, the connections, but also like the analytical kind of mindset of like, thinking about how you're thinking about something and continuing to break that down into smaller and smaller pieces.
Right. And that's probably the only left brain I have, because most of me is right brained.
Yeah. So tell us a few of the major benefits for calls marketing. We've talked about working together with between two different types of companies or organizations for mutual benefit. But what are some actual results, some actual impact that you've seen?
If I'm able to, or my company, my team is able to put together a seminar on domestic violence or prostate disease or whatever, or catering, how to cater a party, whatever it is, that visibility from doing that seminar is better than a 1x10 ad in whatever publication you get it in. And it's really better sometimes than any social media post. Social media is great. I'm not belittling it, but unless you have PR to go along with social media, then it doesn't make a lot of sense. Social media content has to have content. And some of that content comes from all the PR things you do. Am I making sense?
You're making a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, walk us through, there's not going to be, I'm sure, any typical engagement with you, but kind of walk us through your process. And a business comes to you and they want to promote themselves and get out there, and they also want to, give back to the community, where do they go from there?
Okay. Last year during COVID, from May through November, I had a referral to a client, prospective client, and they are a worldwide sanitization company. And they came looking for visibility, PR. And I said, my gosh, sanitization, they clean surfaces and hang up some of the products on freezers and prevent a lot of disease from happening, a lot of the COVID. And so I said, I think this would make a great story and an even better story if we were able to give some of this equipment to some of the nonprofits in Atlanta. Even though they're worldwide, they're still Atlanta-based in Marietta, Georgia. So they said, okay, sure. I asked their budget, and they gave me a budget and what each product represented in terms of budget. And I set about finding nonprofits who would be interested and willing to use their products at no cost. And I found two of them. One of them is a huge, sprawling homeless shelter in downtown Atlanta. And the other is the Jewish Community Center over in Dunwoody, Georgia, which is a huge place also. And part of the reason I picked the Jewish Community Center was that one of the two partners of the company is Jewish. So that worked out pretty well. And to give you some examples of the kind of visibility we got visibility in Georgia Trend, which is a statewide publication. We got, because the company itself is based in Marietta, Georgia, we got a publication there called Focus to do something. We also got in a column in the AJC, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, called Inspire Atlanta, and that appears on every Sunday in the AJC. And that was an article about the cause marketing. We also got in the Atlanta Jewish Times because one of the partners was Jewish. We got in, because of the first article in the AJC, the Inspire Atlanta article, somebody in the business department of the AJC wanted to know more about this company because he was a reporter doing a story on pivoting from one segment of the industry to another. And so this particular company that I represented fitted. So we got in the AJC twice. We were also interviewed on radio. So we got a lot of mileage out of that one, cause marketing, because I said, hey, we don't want to just do a story. I don't think you'll get as much mileage out of just a story on your products as you will on being able to give away some of them. So that's the story on that one.
Yeah, that's really interesting. How does a new client typically find you? And you mentioned this last one, referrals. So I'm assuming that probably a lot of referrals, but how would a new customer, new client connect with you initially?
Well, I've been involved in probably 100 nonprofit organizations over my years in Atlanta. including right now I'm on the board of the Atlanta Lions Club. And because I'm a big dog enthusiast, I'm the chair of the Leader Dog program. We just raised $3,500 for Leader Dogs recently with a Facebook promotion. Anyway, I've been involved in the Atlanta Women's Chamber of Commerce. I've gotten 2 clients from the Lions Club referral. I've gotten a new client from the Women's Chamber. I'm involved in the Buckhead Club, which is a social and business club, and gotten lots of client referrals out of that. I do a lot of networking. I still do, even after so many years in business, because I believe in giving back myself, and it helps to be known and see and be seen. So that's what I do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. What are some what are some tips that you would give people that want to promote themselves through collaboration with a business or a nonprofit?
Well, I believe in getting involved, as I just said. I think you pick your passions. What are you most interested in? Well, I love dogs. And so the Lions Club, because it helps dogs as one of its charities, was one I got involved in. I also, as I said, love dogs, and I got involved in some other dog-related rescue organizations. I have a dog of my own. I'm very involved in the arts. My significant other and I have gone to a lot of arts events, and I've given time to the Atlanta Opera and the Atlanta Symphony and the High Museum of Art and the Atlanta Ballet. I was a member back in the 80s of the Atlanta Women's Chamber, and then it sort of lost its steam and started back up again about 7 or 8 years ago. So those are just some examples. I just believe in getting involved. That's the tip I have for all of it is you get involved in what represents your passions, and then the rest will happen naturally.
Yeah, and you're probably gonna bring in clients. If you're a consultant or something, then you're gonna bring in clients that share the same values as you. When you do that, it's very important to have people that match well with you in those types of services. And so that's a perfect that's great advice for focusing in on those that ideal customer. How should listeners best connect with you?
Well, they can email me, or they can call or text me at 404-395-2602.
So going back a little bit.
Sure, Michael.
So getting involved. Okay. So specifically thinking about my business and our social mission, which is to kind of push back on the isolation that we've been experiencing as a part of COVID, right? So we'd identify a nonprofit or some organization that is taking that, is taking a stance against that. And we find an email on their website and just like, hey, we want to get involved, or how can we optimize that initial touch point?
Well, sometimes that's the best you can do is an email on their website. Hopefully, if you search around on LinkedIn or with people you'll find somebody who's also involved in that organization. And then you'll be able to connect personally. It's so funny. I've been thinking for years that I really, because I love children, even though I don't have any, that I ought to get involved in St. Jude. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, where that organization is based, this hospital. And my dad's cousin, probably mine twice removed, was one of the builders at that hospital. And I grew up watching Danny Thomas, the Danny Thomas show, promoting his hospital. And sure enough, I was at the Buckhead Club and somebody said, you should get involved in St. Jude Hospital. And now I've emailed somebody that she suggested. That was kind of, in the mind, and then it went out into the universe. So even though that email you find on a website sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. Unfortunately, people ignore some of those emails, unfortunately. So if it doesn't work, go back and find somebody that you can connect with, personally.
Yeah, that's good advice. I'm trying to think, like, I don't personally know many people involved in these nonprofits that would be relevant for my business in Atlanta, but potentially you. And then
I'll be glad to help you if you have specific ones you're interested in. I'll probably know somebody or know somebody who knows somebody in each one of them.
Yeah. Let me do some research and I'll text you or send you an email.
That would be good.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Michael, Marilyn, is there anything else that you guys want to cover before we wrap up? Any last things to mention?
I've loved doing this. This is just great. It's been good for me to kind of express it all.
Yeah, we really enjoyed having you on, and we look forward to continue to watch Atlanta Calls Marketing grow, and hopefully there'll be room for collaboration in the future.
I'd love that. That would be great. Thank you,
right.
Steve.
Well,
Thank you,
have
Michael.
a good one.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marilyn. It's been great to meet you and talk to you today.
Thank you, Michael.